Next in our humorous speech contest is Frank Lardino, My Sicilian Life. My Sicilian Life, Frank Lardino.
Good morning, Toastmasters, honored guests, and friends. I married a Dutch woman, and her favorite saying is, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. To which I always replied, there's two kinds of people in the world. There's Italians and those who want to be Italians. You know what I'm talking about. I am Italian, but I'm Sicilian in particular. And Sicilians are regarded by other Italians as being like the mafiosos and the criminals of the Italian culture. And when you criticize or ridicule a Sicilian, he'll do one of two things. He'll fit you for a pair of cement shoes, or he'll laugh at you. Sicilians are very passionate people, and it becomes evident when you're watching two Sicilians talk. Whether they're talking in English or not, it doesn't matter. The sentences all follow a similar rhythm. It sounds something like this. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. You see, there's a build-up to a climax, and then a dramatic jump off the cliff. We're very dramatic. We're also very physical when we talk. You've heard the joke, you know how to shut an Italian up? Tie his hands together? That's true. My little Sicilian grandma, you think MMA fighters are tough? We used to put her in the cage against an opponent and go, Graham, that guy right there thinks he can make a better meatball than you. I don't know how to make a meatball. I chop the garlic like this. I put it in the oven. I do this, I do that. She never lost a fight. My little Sicilian grandma's opening move, when I would see her for the first time in the day, would be this extreme face vice head shake. Oh, my baby boy, look at how big, you grow so big, I love you. And that was followed by the extreme cheek pull. And I got to be honest with you, it was a pretty exciting way to be greeted when I was a child, although it did grow old when I was in my 20s and 30s. My little Sicilian grandma, she was 4'11", and she was built like a bowling ball. And you knew if you ever peeved her off, she couldn't catch you because bowling balls aren't that maneuverable. But she had two primary weapons. Her first primary weapon was the slipper. When you were running away from her, if you saw her reach down to grab her slipper, you knew you were dead meat. I'm telling you, she could throw that thing like a professional knife thrower, hit you from 20 paces at a full gallop. I learned later in my childhood to run the serpentine pattern. I had maybe a 1 in 10 chance of getting away from her. And if I did get away from her, she would engage her second primary weapon, the ambush. She'd wait in the house somewhere in a dark room, in a closet, even behind the bed. I'd walk by, and boom! She'd suck me up like a praying mantis. Grab me by the upper arm and give me mazzata. 3 shots. Boom, boom, boom. And it was always 3. 1, because she missed me with the slipper. 2, because she had to engage her second primary weapon. And 3 was the interest and all the time she had to wait between each attack. But the one thing I knew is that I was going to be punished if I did something bad. You see, Sicilians, we never forget anything. In fact, we invented the word vendetta. I'll never forget sitting at the dinner table quietly with my grandparents, and my grandma reached over and boom, she whacked me upside the head. I go, Graham, what are you doing? I didn't even do anything. I just remember, taking the garbage out last week. I never forget. I was blessed to be raised by my grandparents. They were Depression-era people. And the one thing I can tell you about Depression-era people is they don't waste anything. I mean, nothing. But in particular, they don't waste food. I grew up hearing, you no waste of food. It's a sin, you no waste of food. We never wasted food. I took my grandma on a fishing trip one time, and we were out on the boat, and she was having difficulty coordinating the casting and the reeling in, because bowling balls really aren't good at that. So I hooked into a really little fish, and I let the line go slack, and I handed her the pole. And I said, Graham, could you reel this in for me because I have to get something out of the tackle box? So she's reeling in the line, and she felt a tug, and she thought she had a snag, so she was, pulling up, and I go, Graham, I think you got a fish. Reel it in. I think you got a fish. Oh my God, I got a fish. I'm like, Graham, grab the pole, reel the fish in. So she horsed the little fish in. I'm like, oh, look at Graham, you caught your first fish. So I went to take the fish off the hook and release it into the lake. And she looked at me, what are you doing with my fish? I go, I got to throw it back, Graham. It's too small. We'll catch other fish. You're not wasting my fish. That's a good food. You're going to clean my fish. I eat my fish. I give you massage, you throw my fish back. I'm like, okay. So I put the little fish on the stringer, and we got back to camp, and I rolled a little bowling ball back up into the cabin, and I let the poor little traumatized fish go. Thank goodness he swam away. The very next day, we had a fish dinner in the cabin, and I strategically picked one fillet on that platter. And I said, Graham, this one right here is the one you caught. And she proudly put it on her plate and started eating and said, you see, I tell you, my fish is delicious. You're not wasting my food. You're not wasting my food. One of my favorite memories growing up in my Sicilian family were Sundays. My grandmother would spend all morning long preparing a feast, and our entire family would come over. She had 10 children, and they all came with their spouses. They brought all my cousins, and we would sit around the table and eat and tell stories like this. And we would laugh and laugh and laugh. And the most important lesson I learned growing up in my Sicilian family was the power of laughter. Because if you can get somebody to laugh, no matter where you are in life, how deep of a hole you're in, for that one moment in time, you spring up out of that hole to see the sunshine. The Italians like to say, live, love, and laugh, because laughter is the best medicine. Thank you, Toastmasters.
Please have 1 minute of silence for our judge.